It's the end of day 19, and I'm going to make this little intro segment pretty quick because it's like 8 p.m. on a Friday. The sprint is picking up intensity. It's been an insane week in a really good way and a really tiring way as well. But I'm getting so much inbound love. So I've decreased a little bit of my velocity in building just because there's only people hitting me up. Hey, what about this use case? What about this? And a big part of this is engaging in communities. I'm totally okay with that because I'm getting a lot of folks DMing me saying, hey, Max, I started a sprint. We got people waking up on a Saturday at 6:30 a.m. to build AI workflows. So I'm truly, truly inspired by that. I'm having so much fun, especially the opportunity to collaborate with folks. So please keep pushing, keep giving me your ideas. You're the wind underneath my sails. First up, I went to Prague this week, 2-day trip, in and out job. It was really fun. We had a meetup. It was our first meetup in Prague. I had some great talks. Liam from the community did some fantastic stuff with a fork of NNN, who is doing some unit testing. Oleg gave some amazing demos of upcoming AI features. I did record an interview with Oleg about that. I don't have time to put it into this update because I want to get it out, but I'll put it out on the next one. So definitely catch the next one because you're getting a little sneak peek on what's coming down in the AI pipeline at NNN. The day after the meetup, I had a hackathon day with Oleg. Now, Oleg is one of the main engineers on the AI features, so he's super knowledgeable on stuff. What we ended up doing was taking a single agent approach, a serial agent approach. That is where you have one AI agent output some results and feed that into another AI agent. There's some evidence that for some use cases that could be better. Our results found that the single agent approach for most use cases is probably going to be simpler and there's going to be less work to do. You get a lot more control with a serial agent approach, but it's going to be longer. And so for most use cases, especially if you're not building some enterprise use case where you need infinite control, I would definitely start with a single agent use case. The majority of the rest of this video though is going to be a look at Prague and my hack with Oleg, and we get into the details. I didn't have time to publish all the workflows for that, but on Monday I plan to publish all those workflows so you can have a play around. The use case that we did was the user inputs an academic topic, and then the AI will research keywords, find relevant academic papers, summarize them, and output references. My Flux generator that I put out been getting some love, and I think I get why. There's so many crappy sites that are charging money for things that are free just because they're putting like a little UI on top. But I still want more people to get that value. So I'm doing a sneaky little product hunt launch tomorrow morning, Saturday morning. Very last minute, threw some assets together. Let's see what happens. Already today, you can try the generator from my own NNN instance. I'm serving it through a form trigger, but you can also clone it. It could be a headless service that you're using. You can tweak the trigger to have different inputs and whatnot. So definitely check that out if you have it. And definitely, please, I know it's a Saturday, but head to Product Hunt and check it out. And if you like it, support the product. P.S. I did not ask you to upvote it, and that's important. I'm not asking you to upvote it. I'm asking you to check it out. And if you like it, show it some love. And then email spy. So I've been a bit of a bad egg on the email spy project because there's been so much stuff on the go, but Oscar has been an absolute gem and has done so much work on it so far. He's done 4 workflows so far. He's got the main workflow. He's got a URL tool. This is the tool for agent to get URLs. He's using Puppeteer with that. There's a text tool, it's same as the URL tool. And he's got a test version of that. What he would like me to build next is a cache for all this, similar to what we did on StarLens, so that when we launch that on Product Hunt next week, if people ping the exact same query, it just returns the cache result. He also was having some issues in Vercel. So in Vercel, the maximum timeout you can have when you make a request to some API is 60 seconds. A lot of this stuff, scraping multiple web pages and running through LLMs, takes longer than 60 seconds. And this has been a common thread in the AI sprint. 60 seconds in the API world is rather unheard of. You kind of do an async pattern at that point, right? Where you make a request, you wait some time, and then you fetch to try to get it again, or you do some sort of callback pattern. So you basically make the request and you tell, when you're making the request, hey, when it's ready, ping my endpoint, which would be like your webhook trigger. And then that's how you do that loop. But I think with the advent of all these LLM models and the idea that, hey, 60 seconds might not be that long to do something that took a human 2 days to do, there's definitely some different strategies around that. TLDR, if you're building on Vercel, keep in mind that they have a 60-second hard limit. So I just got into Prague. It's a 20-minute walk to the hotel. It's a beautiful day and taking a bit of the city on the way. checked out of the hotel. Now I'm waiting on an Uber to go to a co-working space. Oleg is meeting me there, and then we're going to start hacking away at something. Exactly what? I'm not sure yet. Later today, I got to catch a train back to Berlin. There he is. Hey, Oleg. Good morning, man. How you doing? So over our morning coffee, we were thinking what we should do because I actually had no idea by the time I got here what we're going to do. And something I've been seeing a little bit about is serial agent workflows, right? So you have one agent do something and those outputs go to another agent, which is different from the multi-agentic approach. And I built a very simple workflow like this for doing some podcast summarization. But one thing we were talking with Oleg about and thought would be pretty cool is to build a use case where we have a single agent workflow, do a serial agent approach, and then we can compare and benchmark the two and see which one's better so you guys can take those learnings and use those in your own workflows. So Oleg, what's the use case that we want to build out?
So we want to compare two approaches. The use case is going to be, you would provide it with a list of keywords, topics that you're interested in, and then we would search for those keywords and find some relevant papers. Whatever relevancy means at this point, that's something we have to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
You would get those PDFs, let's say 5 PDFs, chunk them, and then we would ask agent or a series of agents to provide a summarization of each of those papers. And then ideally we would benchmark the result of this summarization based on some criteria, like how readable it is, how well the summarization has been done, using some smarter models, actually also us reading the papers and concluding how good it is.
Unless reading and comparing which one sheet we would want to read, like the single agent one sheet or the multi-agentic, it's maybe not as a scientific test, but I think if that was the end result of why we would use this tool, I think it's also okay if we, at least for this one-day hackathon, if we run a couple versions of it and compare and vote, maybe we do a blind vote, I just write them out and see which one you would prefer. And so at a high level, I think how this workflow is going to work is, you type in your topic, like AI, let's say.
Sure.
It takes relevant academic papers, summarizes those, and outputs that. So that's quite a lot of steps to do for a single agent, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that one thing I've seen in the community is when we have an agent doing a lot of things, it gets a little bit more confused, or it can be a bit less predictable. It might have good outcomes, but less often. The serial agentic approach is going to be more expensive, right? It is going to take longer. There's multiple LMs running. Like we predict it's going to be longer probably. So it'd be nice to see what benefits it has, because if it's a bit more expensive, or maybe it's a lot more expensive, but if it's high quality, then people can use that in the decision-making case by case. Because for some use cases, that's no problem. But for other ones, some free online tool, that's gonna be a big problem, and you'd rather the worst quality, but it's cheap. So Oleg, this all sounds like a great plan. What's the first step? What do we do first?
Well, we can start by first getting the keywords that what you're interested in. And there we can already use even a simple chain to from this list of keywords, generate some search phrases for the search engine that we're going to use to search for the papers. Because, if you just type AI, that might not be the ideal phrase to search for because they're just very broad. Once we get that, we get a bunch of papers. We grade them based on how old or new they are and some relevancy fact, like maybe citations. So we get access to that in API.
What do you think for the first step? You say, we got to capture the stuff from the user. What if we use a form trigger?
Yeah.
Instead, because we could use the chat trigger, but the form trigger is, this sounds like a headless service we could launch. You could consume this via API. It can be useful. With the form trigger, the way it's kind of set up, from my experience, it's very easy to then swap that out for a webhook trigger. So then we can ship this and we can have, hey, you can consume this headless, or you can use it with the UI and test it out. Sound good?
Yeah, that sounds like a good first step.
Then let's build. Okay, quick status update. We split up the project into 2 parts. I'm working on the first part. So that's getting the topic from the user and then outputting keywords for that. What Oleg and I did was we just agreed on the output schema that my part of the work was going to do to his, just like engineers would do with the front end and back end. Right. So then we were able to basically break up the work and work independently, which is pretty cool. So my part's working, but it's also a very, very simple part. I just have to output an array of keywords. What's your progress, Oleg? What are you doing?
I created a tool that one of Peter agent's going to use, or we're going to use sequentially, that takes these keywords provided by Max's workflow. It fires a request to the archivex.org. It gets papers and summary of those papers for every keyword, and it gets arbitrary number of results. So for now, we're just using 2 papers per keyword, but that's something that agent can decide on their own, or we can specify it run or whatnot. And it gives you a aggregated list of these papers. Now I'm going to be working on setting up a tool that can summarize an individual paper and then providing these tools to the agent. And let's see how well it's able to use them and come to some conclusions based on.
Cool. Since my very easy part is done now, could we do a similar thing for some of the project? What could we split up that I could work on?
Maybe you could start working on some of the evaluations.
We also need the single agent approach too, right? Should I try and build a naive one of that?
So that I would start with that, because single agent would be just an agent that has access to these tools.
And you're building the tools already. It's gonna be faster for you to build that. Cool. So yeah, I'll start building the evaluation thing. Yeah. Because we're gonna need a workflow that runs these, gets the results, adds them to a table. Let's say Notion, because that's where we're gonna have the whole project, so everyone can see those runs, explore them, and then, well, let me get that done first. So I need to be able to run these workflows, get the results. Once we have the results, if we run out of time, because I got to catch a train in a couple hours, if we have the results, the crunching them and then doing a quick, hot take on which we think is better, we can do afterwards.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's good.
All right, let's get building.
A few moments later.
So Oleg's hard at work, so we're not going to distract him. What I'm working on now, because the keyword part was really first, is we're going to need a way to evaluate these. So what my workflow is doing here is it defines some test variables. This is the topic that we want to run. And then it uses these execute workflow nodes to run both the single agent version and the multi-agent version. It then merges those and adds it to a super base table. What's going to happen is each time I run this perform a run workflow, it's going to run each one of those once with the specific topic. I think what's going to be good is for each topic, we do 5-10 executions. So that way we can generate 30, 40, 50 of these things. And we might not make it to actually evaluate the results today, but then we'll have it in a single source of truth. And then we can crunch the numbers. And once we figure out which one wins, share that as a template for you guys. But I'm going to make sure that this is all available so you can inspect and also evaluate it yourself. And in a sec, we'll check in with Oleg to see his progress. Oleg, can you get back to work, please? I'll figure out lunch. Thank you. Much. Lunch is here. We got to keep our developers happy, right? So I'm going to go grab that. Let's find our empanada delivery guy.
Hello?
Yeah, are you downstairs or upstairs?
Hello? Okay. Я українською говорю. Ти на дворі чи на горі?
Let's try not to drop these kombuchas. They were not cheap. So we got lunch. We got some empanadas. Oleg's choice. Right, gents. Lunch is here. Here, grab that, but so Oleg, before we let you eat, what's your progress? How you doing?
So I connected these tools. It's now running for the input. I'm testing my second prompt where it's also generating the keywords based on the user question. And I just got some output. I asked the question, what's the latest of effects of intermittent fasting? It came up with some keywords based on that and started to getting the papers.
Mm-hmm. Is this a single agent or is this? Okay,
this is a single agent, yeah. See that it got some results. It selected the ones that it thinks it might be relevant for the summarization, run the summarization tool for them. Finally came up with output, and it also included the relevant references and citations. Now we're going to eat and we'll see how useful this is. So with this sequential approach, the question is how strict we want this to be, because here we know that user asked for a topic, topic being intermittent fasting, that we converted to a few keywords that we got the papers from. And now I'm using this chain. You see, I had to retrieve 900 items to get roughly 5 of them being relevant. That's how much non-relevant stuff the API returned. But the question is, do we want to match only based on the user's topic? Because when I asked about intermittent fasting, if I'm including the keywords in the prompt, I'm getting stuff like personalized weight loss management through wearable devices and artificial intelligence, which is somewhat related to weight loss and fasting, but not directly. So we need to decide if we also want to check the keywords for really relevant papers or really only strictly check for topic.
I think at the end, this is going to be a variable the end user consuming this service or using this is going to want to, it's going to depend.
Yeah.
I could see there are mode where it's pick strictly just this keyword. So for now, given also in the time crunch, I would say this version's fine, because I think we know that that's going to be easy for us to add as a logic that we then just like fill, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
capture from the form or whatever, and then have that populate here and update the prompt.
Yeah,
Cool.
that sounds good.
Right. So right now, Oleg's raising my blood pressure because we're not done yet and we got to leave in a sec. So hopefully these words of encouragement help. I'm just kidding, Oleg. Positive vibe. How are we doing, Will?
I'm running the test execution to getting the paper summarized. It's 7 papers. Maybe I should have limited it to 2. It's currently running the state it is queued.
Okay.
So that might take a while, 7 papers, potentially a lot.
But the good news is, even if we don't make it right now to test it, we basically have things in place to run some eval. And then from that, we might want to tweak some of the things we want to, but basically by tomorrow, because it's Thursday today, and I'd love this to go out in the Friday update. So the Friday update, we'll be able to have this. I'll be able to pick this up from this.
Yeah, I think it's plausible.
And I'll make it back home tonight, so that's good. Cool. I'll grab my laptop. I wonder how much this cheesy pop music in the background of this co-working space is going to make it in. But yeah, so far, what we've gotten done is we've gotten 2 versions of a workflow done, almost done, that's summarizing or taking a topic, outputting keywords, finding academic papers, summarizing those, outputting a text, 2 different versions of that, added eval stack, which we had to switch from Notion to Supabase. And the one thing we might not get to is getting it all tested today. I think that's pretty damn good velocity for, between you and me, we started at 10 a.m. So I think that's pretty good. 10:30 probably after the coffee. If I ever say we'll just cut that out, I'm not going to do that. It's going to be included. Just know that.
Crap.
All right. While Oleg's finishing that, let me use the power of AI. Let's see if there's going to be traffic on the way. Yes, it's going to take 20 minutes now. Before it was 15.
We better leave soon.
Oh, trick shot, no way! Edit Hen's got skills, yo. Okay, so made it to the train, 2 minutes to spare, a little out of breath, but just saved the company a bit of money on a last minute ticket. Let's see how much further I can get. I got 4 hours on this train ride. Great trip in Prague, and so cool to see the community out here, talk with some folks, see some great use cases, and build with Oleg.
Day 2.
So running the evaluations right now, one of the issues I've been having, or one of the comparisons I'm seeing already, is just the runtime. So the serial agent is taking 10x longer to run. It's also failing a bit more often. So we can see the ones that succeed are taking like 14.5 minutes. On the individual one, we're doing that in about 1.5 minutes. So it's about 10x longer. Now, if the results were demonstrably better, of course, in a lot of use cases, 1.5 minutes versus 10 minutes, if it's something asynchronous, would be totally fine as long as you understand that. And then it is erroring out though. And times that it errors out, what's happening is if we zoom in here, one of these sub workflows that we're running, it's this one here. If you go to the HTTP request, we see that the parent's sending in a null PDF link. So the way this is structured, right, we would now have to build in error validation between those two. Whereas if it was a single agent doing that, if it gets an error from an HTTP request, it understands that it got an error and might try to run it again, actually. And the previous ones where I have an HTTP request, which was 404 due to my own setup errors, the agent would try to use it 2-3 times and then told the user, hey, sorry, it seems like the tool's not working. So one learning is if you're going to have a serial agent approach, after each agent, you are going to have to validate the outputs because the other agent expects a specific schema or something, and it's going to break. If not, you have to add in what happens if that isn't the case. And with a single agent approach so far, it was working. So I'm not sure if we're going to be able to do a proper evaluation run. At the same time, I think that's okay because by virtue of not being able to do the evaluation run due to this thing taking 10 times longer and being more brittle is already some kind of a verdict. Now, again, this is not an academic test, right? The ways we did the serial agent, perhaps there's other ways to do that or other use cases. So I wouldn't say that never do a serial approach because I do have a different workflow that I can show you while this is running, which I was getting some good results from. And so if I go into that, it's called the Generate History Podcast Project. So I was trying to do this before with a single agent approach and the results, it was being too short. So what this does is it takes a topic, like a historical topic, and then I modeled out what might happen in a production house to create a podcast. So the producer might do an outline of it. This outputs chapters. We break those chapters into each chapter itself because it outputs in Markdown. And then we have a loop where we have a research agent research each chapter. What I was experimenting with here is actually also having it go to Supabase and add its research log. So it's a summary of the previous chapters, almost kind of like a blockchain. so that when it goes back into the agent, it knows what it researched in the previous chapter without having to feed that all in. So it does each chapter level research, adds it to a super base. Those all have a workflow execution ID, so that by the time we go to the done loop and go to the actual script writer, what I was going to do is it's going to have a super base tool where it can pull all the research for every chapter from super base and then output. This so far was better than a single approach. But as we're seeing with this other one, the one we were doing with Oleg, like again, this single execution is still running. So we're not going to get a formal eval today. I'm going to cut this off because I got some other things to do. But I will update that the verdict is that the single agent approach seems to be better here. So whatever solution you have, I would extrapolate and say, build a single agent solution first. There's your benchmark, because you can do some runs on it and you know where you stand. And then if that's not good enough, you could take on the effort to try a zero agent approach. It is going to be longer, but perhaps for your use case, that's okay. But I would always go with a single approach first, because that's what I did in the history podcast. I wasn't happy with a single approach. And so I did the serial one.
A few minutes later.
So it's been a really long week. I'm going to go recharge and get my rave on in Berlin. But next week is the last full week. So gotta make it count. Please show some love to the project, build some workflows. And I have it on good authority that we're going to get a little competition together for the best flows built by the community, which is pretty awesome. So really get building on those flows so you have a little extra time to submit those. And yeah, next week, there's a lot to do, right? We got to launch Email Spy, which is a non-trivial app. There's a Quadrant collab. There's probably some projects I'm not going to get to, but we got to push. And one thing I'm seeing, you can use Siri to run end-to-end workflows. So Siri handles all the voice stuff. So super easy way, because Siri can be run through the Shortcuts app on iOS and on Mac. And the Shortcuts app can invoke an API endpoint. So before the sprint is over, mark my word, I got to ship something with voice. We're going to see me talk with a workflow. So I know I'm saying that on camera, so that's a little stressful and my blood pressure is definitely going up, but it's a sprint and let's get it done. I really hope you enjoyed this video. It took a hell of a long time to edit down, but it was also a lot of fun. We're getting closer to the end of the sprint now. Every day counts. I'd really ask for your support in building along with me, in giving me feedback on what you'd like to see more, because at this point, the sprint's doing pretty well. And I think we have a pretty good shot into turning this into my full-time jobs. Every day, I'm flowgramming, I'm sharing it. And I think I had a ton of learnings from the sprint in a long-term format. We could do it a bit more efficiently. So we're going deeper into tutorial content and stuff, because I think that's one place where I've been a little bit light. So I apologize about that. I'm doing a lot of different stuff on the go, filming, flowgramming, collaborations, and editing. It's all fun, but it can only get better with time. Please send me your ideas, Twitter, LinkedIn, in the comments. I'm monitoring everything. And if I get too many comments, we'll just automate it and summarize it. So I'll definitely get your ideas. Thanks, everyone.